Hey everybody, Max here. Today I wanted to do a slightly different type of video than you're used to seeing on this channel. Normally you see the video post-chase, right? It's just kind of the highlights, and every once in a while I'll put together a longer video with some narration, but it's been a long time since I've ever, done an analysis of multiple chase days, what led to what, so on and so forth. So I figured, due to the fact that we're all cooped up, COVID-19 running rampant, there's no better time than now to try and do something like this. I've gotten a few requests for this style of video. It's not my favorite because I don't like being in front of the camera. I'd rather be behind it, but what the heck, I figure give it a try now. And if this isn't your forte, I invite you to check out my storm chasing series, which revolves around chases from the 90s and interviews with those who were out chasing them. So it's all kind of vintage style. Currently that's only available on the Facebook page, so that's Past Pursuits. You can go find that on Facebook. Eventually, once the full episodes are complete, it will be released on my YouTube channel. Now, there will be a full another video describing all of that once the date is set in stone. However, right now you can go view some mini episodes on the Facebook page. Once again, that's Past Pursuits. So now with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and get to the main subject of this video, March Madness 2020.
Alright, so let's just very briefly go over what I mean when I say it was an active March, because we look here at the numbers, and as of March 20th, there were only 39 recorded tornadoes. Now there were some events after March 20th that'll put that total count probably around 50 or 60. However, that still falls well short of March 2019, where we see 107, March 2017, where there's 192, and those are kind of outlier events to begin with. But also the majority of the setups that led to those numbers were either in the southeast or east of 35 and were, potentially after dark. Like I know one of the big setups in March of 2017 was after dark, kind of Midwestern states. And that's just kind of the reasoning why I wouldn't consider those as active, because they weren't very chaseable. You don't see a lot of, video or photos from any of those events. But this March, we have numerous tornado days, numerous tornado photos. So for chasers, it was relatively active. As far as all tornado counts, it's nothing too crazy. But let's go ahead and go into the first few dates that we're going to talk about here. It belongs to a setup starting around March 12th and going into March 13th with two different troughs. Alright, so we're looking here at the morning SPC outlook for March 13th. You can see we have a 5% tornado risk in far west Texas into southeast New Mexico. And the reason it's kind of shaped like this has to do with terrain and the fact that there is a cold front from the previous storm system that was moving south. And as it got about to Midland area, it kind of stalled and retreated back north just a tad and became a stationary front. So that is kind of what set the stage there. The moisture pools up along the front range. So you see this kind of bulge here, kind of looks like a dry line bulge, and that's mainly terrain induced. It's the Davis Mountains just to the southwest of Pecos, which then kind of goes back into the Guadalupe Mountains. I'm not sure exactly the delineating factors there, but you can see where the moisture is pooled up along the northern side of the Davis Mountains. That's kind of the region we were targeting. That's where the winds started to back as they were in the vicinity of the front. The moisture is pooled up there in that little, kind of tucked in that little area. And then you go further west and you can see where the actual Guadalupe Mountains start. And that's kind of where the storms were developing and coming off. Alright, now we can see our storm finally north of Pecos, and the updraft is very tilted, indicative of a highly sheared environment. Our main area of interest is actually way off down there to the southwest. You can see a little bit of a blocky wall cloud as the storm approaches Highway 285 near Orla, Texas. Now the wall cloud is only a few miles away. We're actually visually able to see some rotation, and the velocities are increasing on radar. The tornado potential is starting to become clear as this surface-based wall cloud just starts ripping up here. We actually become tornadic momentarily. We can see some little vortices of dust start spinning up here, and eventually we get a condensed area of rotation you can see start to pull up here, and dust goes up to meet it. That's our very weak, brief tornado, but this area of circulation continues and actually wraps itself completely in rain. A few minutes later, we now see a fully developed stovepipe tornado off to the northwest. This appears to be the tornado's strongest point. You can actually see some power flashes right about now, and the tornado transitions into a cone, goes through a little bit longer of a life cycle before eventually roping out. So here's a nice still image that shows the entire clear slot wrapping around back to where the tornado is, and you can see how far that tornadic circulation extends up into the supercell thunderstorm. It doesn't just stop at the base, it continues going all the way up through the updraft. And it's a cool catch because you don't see a lot of tornadoes in this area. They do happen, but they're certainly rare. We can see here that since 1950 there haven't been a ton of tornadoes. And if we go further north on the same longitude or similar longitude, we can see Weld County, Colorado has significantly more tornadoes than that area. So a cool catch in that area. The next day I want to talk about is less than a week later. We were out chasing, and it was kind of a marginal day. In fact, I didn't think we were going to chase. I kind of slept in and wrote it off, was waiting for the bigger day, which appeared to be the next day. But we eventually ended up deciding to go down to Texas. We went through Wichita Falls probably around 2 o'clock and made it to Throckmorton, which was right on the warm front, which we can see here pretty vividly. Now, there were supercells that were developing just south of the warm front and crossing and moving north and not really doing much. They didn't have a whole lot of time to mature before they were on the warm front, and then by the time they got north, obviously they wouldn't be tornadic anymore. So we kind of sat there for a while waiting for something to take off, and eventually this one storm really started showing low-level rotation on radar, and we had a dilemma. Do we go west of town because the visibility was just horrible? You could only see, maybe 2 miles, or do we go north of town and wait for it? And we decided to go north of town. And then we start hearing tornado reports from everybody that went west of town, and we're thinking, oh, well, we made a mistake. And thankfully, the storm continued to produce another tornado. Actually, its most substantial tornado was just to the northwest of Throckmorton. And here you can see we have a view of it. Low contrast, poor hazy conditions right on the warm front. But a tornado nonetheless, nothing to complain about. And here's a cropped version of that, and you can really see the motion here. See, obviously a tornado, and then it drops down, becomes a relatively sizable tornado, but only lasts about a minute or two. So not a wall hanger by any means, but it felt nice to get a tornado on such a marginal day and pick the one storm out of all this cluster that actually did something. But we were ready to get back and get some rest because the next day looked to be the big day, and it most certainly was as far as tornado count. And now moving on to March 18th, we can see here at 500 millibars, a nice upper level low off to the west over Nevada. We can see some defluence over Texas, and a very broad warm sector with 1,000 to 2,000 joules spread throughout from Abilene to Dallas, which is the area we were targeting, and we actually ended up going straight to Abilene. As many might remember, the HRRR was extremely consistent with firing a storm off to the southwest of Abilene along the higher terrain there, and that's exactly what ended up happening. We chased that first storm for quite a while, and when we were on it, initially it looked really good, had a nice wall cloud with some good rotation, but very quickly we noticed it was having some issues as it would become elevated and then surface space and then elevated. It would just try to keep pulling up scud, but it could never really stay completely surface based, and that was because it was running into a capping inversion further to the east that was still in place. We can see here on the 21Z sounding from Dallas that there is still a notable inversion in place, but as we progress to 0Z, it's basically gone. So that's why it took a while for these storms to become tornadic, and we kind of noticed that. We sat around not sure what exactly to do, and there was a storm that formed off to our northeast, just to the northeast of our original storm, and it didn't look very good. So we ended up heading back west to a supercell that was just ahead of the line that had a nice shape on radar. We sat just to the southwest of Breckenridge, Texas for a while and watched it come up. Even though it was after dark, we still were able to see some structure in the lightning flashes, but it quickly became enveloped in the line, and we kind of said, all right, there goes our chase. Meanwhile, the storm to our east all of a sudden exploded and became tornadic, and we thought, well, now we really screwed up. But then something really interesting happened. The line absorbed our supercell and then kind of developed what looked to be a bookend vortex type feature, which very quickly became interesting and had nice rotation on radar. So we went just east of town, shot north, and tried to get a view of that, but it was completely rain wrapped and we couldn't see anything. So we headed east, kind of still thinking that the chase was over, and we noted a little area off to our southwest that looked interesting. So we pulled off. There was a nice updraft with a wall cloud feature, but on radar there wasn't much rotation showing up. So we're kind of like, okay, let's keep an eye on this. We meander further up the road, and then all of a sudden some rotation shows up on radar. So, our alert is on a little bit, but still not thinking a whole lot's about to happen. No more than a few minutes later, we had a tornado on the ground right in front of us. Here you can see power flashes about a mile up the road, and it's a sizable tornado, so we were definitely in shock of how quickly the evolution happened and where it was. It was between an old circulation to our west, the line was to our east-southeast, and then there was this kind of secondary little nub there. But it was just a strange thing. I've never seen a tornado in that type of location where it almost seems like a bookend vortex more than it does a supercell. Anyways, the tornado moves off to our northeast. I finally get the bright idea to get out my still camera because I was just not having a good time with my video camera and the lightning. So here's where I captured some really nice still images. I only had my wide angle lens, so the tornado looks super far away. In reality, it's about 2 to 3 miles, so, you know, a relatively reasonable distance moving away from us. But you can see the entire updraft here. You can see the tornado moving off to the east-northeast and then some power flashes. Really a truly incredible event to just witness at a time that we thought our chase was pretty much over. We eventually get back in the car and come across the damage path, which was really unfortunate. You can see a horse here not knowing what's going on, got loose from wherever it was being kept, and we had to run out and help some people out of a mobile home that was partially destroyed. But I could tell the tornado wasn't super strong because I've seen, you know, extreme damage from even strong EF1 tornadoes in mobile homes, and this one wasn't damaged terribly. The people were fine and able to get out of there pretty easily, so it was definitely an intense end to a sort of interesting chase, but for March, really can't complain. 2 back-to-back tornado days, that rarely happens that time of year.
Hey guys, thank you so much for sticking around and watching. If you enjoyed this style of video, please be sure to let me know. As I said, I don't prefer doing these types of videos. I don't like being in front of the camera. This is awkward for me right now, but if y'all enjoy it, I'll try and do some every now and then, kind of sprinkle it in with the other types of videos I have going on this channel. And I hope y'all are being safe. It's crazy out there. I'm not sure what chase season's gonna be like, if there even is one. We'll just have to wait and see. But anyways, guys, stay safe and enjoy the rest of your week.